Hey, everybody that is watching this. My name is Josh Horst,
I'm Laura Horst.
and we are the
The
horse.
horse.
So we're all right. That's funny. So I'm just gonna get right to the point. We've been wanting to do this for a while. Just share our personal testimony of walking through difficult times dealing with addiction. I struggled with addiction myself. With drugs. Um, and I, we feel like we've come through this and we've gotten through it, and it's not something God wants to waste. Laura, as
Right.
my wife, me putting her through some freaking hell, standing with me, fighting, praying. When other people told her to throw in the towel, she's like, you know what? No, no. But God said, you know. So we're just going to jump right into it. Just a brief background, quick synopsis. I think that's a very small part of what a testimony is. A testimony is what Christ is doing now, what he did through that, what we've learned, what we've overcome, how he's become our strength through that time of weakness. So I don't even know what year it was. I didn't think of all this stuff through,
I
but
think it was 2014, 2015,
so 2014,
maybe
15, whenever it was,
around that time.
we got married in 2009,
Mm-hmm.
and no, it was 2000,
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
Christian was born in 2009.
2009.
So, and then like 2014, we were living in Reamstown in PA, and I was, a neighbor at that time was an avid crack cocaine user. Had asked me many times, want to go get high, you want something, going to pick up, and I was like, it was never an issue until one day, as being self-employed, you're trying to build a business. I had lost $5,000 roughly on the job. It was in November, right before Christmas. Work was dropping off, and I was stressed out. So instead of staying and working through resolving the problem with my workers and helping them so I could salvage some loss, I went home and I was down, I was out, I was frustrated. And wouldn't you know it, who's coming out the door when I pull in the driveway and I'm getting out of my truck? Is my neighbor. He's like, yo, can I use your phone? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm here, I'm standing there waiting for him to get done on the phone, and he drops off, pauses. He's like, yo, I'm going down to Reading to get some. You want something? And at that point, I was like, you know what? They call it in the scene of addiction, you get a case of the efforts. You say, who cares? What's the point? I'm stressed out. Yeah, let's go for a ride. So that started a course of downward spiral. That was one time. It was another 3 months until I went and made that choice again. But then it became more frequent. Pretty soon it wasn't a long time. It was a very short time after that it was a daily thing. $100 here. And then the next thing you know, it's $200 a day, to a point where it was $600-700 a day. For months. And then I'll let Laura take over because this is her process of discovery.
Oh, well, I remember the first time that I knew something was wrong. I had come downstairs. It was like late at night, and Josh still wasn't in bed yet. And I came downstairs, and he was just sitting there watching TV. And I walked in the room, and right away I just felt like this anxiousness in my spirit. Like I was picking something up right away, and I thought maybe he was just watching something bad on television that he shouldn't be watching or whatever. I didn't know what it was for a while after that, but I could pick it up right away. And when I found out, I think you had told me like the first time, like, hey, pray for me. I took some Adderall or something instead of just really being open and honest with what it was. Because when you're in addiction, there's fear, there's shame, there's hiding from the truth. You become masters of manipulation.
Sure.
And so that's what I kind of believed at first and went with. It kind of really hit me off guard because, he was clean for 9 years. And I just thought, he had a past, I had a past, and that was it. It's all in the past. So I didn't expect it to happen again during our marriage. So it hit me hard. God did tell me something was going to happen before I found out. He led me to a verse and just spoke through in Isaiah, about going through the fire with me. And at the time, I wasn't really encouraged by it. I was just kind of like, I don't want to go through fire, God. And I just kind of wrote it off. But he was already speaking to me, what was, that I was going to go through something. But I didn't know what it was. And so I started praying for him when I really, when you're trying to hide stuff, everything's going to come out into the light. No matter what you're walking through, trying to hide from your spouse or people you're accountable to, God always brings it out into the open. So when I found out,
I found that out over and over again. I was like, I got to a point after a couple years of struggle. Sorry to interrupt you, but just to affirm that she was praying that whatever's in the darkness be exposed by the light. And the stupidest things would happen, like 2 o'clock in the morning, like this. One time I transitioned into meth because meth was cheaper than crack cocaine, and 2 o'clock in the morning one time a dealer messaged me and like, was that? What do you think of that stuff? Was it good? And I always told him, I was like, don't message me, because my wife, because of Laura, and I was sleeping at that time. And she hears a message at 2 o'clock in the morning. She checks it, and that didn't go over well. That happened a couple of times, I think. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So God always brings it to light. He's not going to let you hide in darkness. I mean, He loves you too much to let it hide, and He loves, He loved me and my family too much. So I know the things that I started praying for him. I mean, it was. Don't get me wrong. Like I was praying for him, and then I was pressing
cursing
him,
me
but
at times.
yeah, I was also yelling at him, cursing at him. It hurt really, really bad. It was very painful. It caused a lot of anxiety and fear, never knowing what's going on or where he is or what's happening, or what lie to believe, what not to believe. So there was a lot of that going on, but it also was a lot of spiritual warfare. If you are on the fence about like is there good and evil in the world, is God good and whatever, but if you aren't walking through someone with addiction, then I can show you like that God is real, and that there is good and evil, that the enemy is real in the world through addiction because of the spiritual warfare that we went through. That was probably the worst, not worst, hardest spiritual warfare I've ever been through in my life. And it was very intense. And there's a couple of things that I know that I really pressed in and prayed for him over the years that I'm now seeing the fruit of. One was that who the Son sets free is free indeed. So I would declare that over him over and over again. And also that he would hunger and thirst for righteousness, that he would seek first the kingdom of heaven, and that all these things would be given unto him. I didn't just pray for the addiction to stop or that to be broken off. I prayed that he would seek first the kingdom of heaven, because I feel like if you're doing that, then nothing else can come in, because you're putting God first, you're pursuing him, and everything else is going to be burned off of you that's not of him.
So, can I ask a question? So if that's something you prayed, that I would hunger and thirst for righteousness and have a zeal for truth, does that mean you're not going to get frustrated at 5 a.m. when I wake you up enthusiastic because I've been meditating on a scripture anymore?
No, because I'm still tired at 5 a.m.
Oh, okay. I mean, you prayed for it.
I know. That's why I said I'm seeing the fruit now.
Isn't it better than the alternative?
It is better than the alternative.
Right, so
however, I still like my sleep.
So let's rejoice in those times. Then.
Okay. Where are we going with this? So it came to warfare. Yes. So those were things that I prayed for Josh over and over again, but I expected the battle to be short because he had been clean for so long, and it was probably about 5 or 6 years of this, and we were separated about
year and a half.
There was a couple different times. So
6 months one time,
yeah.
A year and a half. Yeah.
The last time that we separated, because we didn't separate fully, it was like I moved in with my parents a couple times, but we were still talking and, meeting up, hanging out. But the last time, it was like I was really at the point where I was like, I don't know if this is ever going to change. And I was like, I just need to do what's best for me and the kids right now. And I, at that point, even though I always wanted restoration and I always prayed that for our marriage and our family, I was really down and it was such a long battle that I was like, this might be how it is. And I can't change him, God. If it's not going to change, then I can't live like this. You can't, when you're with someone with addiction, I definitely recommend separation because it takes so much more of a toll on you when you're living in it, because they tell you all the time that it's not just a disease for the addict, it affects the whole family, which is very true.
And can I say that? I do not believe it's a disease. I know it's taught like circumspectly, and in the secular world, it's a disease. I'll say it starts off with an individual choice.
Yes.
I grew apathetic in my walk with God months, years before that day when I pulled in the parking lot and dude was there. Like, it was a process of me growing stagnant in my spiritual walk. Okay? It started out with a choice to say, you know what, work is more important than my time with God and my spiritual well-being. The busyness is more important. Sleeping in is more important. Going to the gym is more important than taking 30 minutes a day to pray and seek the face of God. As Jesus said to his disciples, the three with him in the Garden of Gethsemane, can't you even stay with me and pray for an hour, lest you be tempted? I got to a place where I was sleeping spiritually instead of staying up and pressing in, so that my battle was already won in the secret place when I faced the battle in the physical. And it's spiritual, but in those moments. So just it starts off as a choice. It becomes addiction becomes I don't like the term disease, because it's something that it's a mental thing. It affects your mind, it affects your spirit. As I continued down that road, like it altered, just like Adderall, or just like antidepressants affect one's your mental positioning, your mental structure. So do drugs. You become dependent upon them to a point where I need them. It's not a disease. It's a choice, and it remains a choice. It remains a choice until the point where you say, you know what, this sucks. I need help. I'm going to the doctor, and it's not something that is not incurable. It is curable for sure, 100% for everybody. There's nobody that's excluded from this. So don't let that be a deception. It is possible to be healed, and it is an individual's choice.
Yes.
After going through what we've gone through, I still firmly believe that it is a choice.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway.
So it affects the whole family. It's hard to live with. So we got to a point where I thought it might be over. That our marriage might be over. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Even though I never wanted that, my heart was always for restoration and for freedom for Josh. That's where I was at that point. We did have people walking with us through this journey. We did have accountability. At times I would call Pastor Ken Reinford up, and he would come and get in Josh's face. And Pastor Ken can be very direct and very and I
very
appreciate that very much.
But always loving. So
yeah.
Thank you, Pops.
So I did want to say, like, if you have a loved one that's in addiction, that you cannot go through this by yourself. You need a good team of support. You need people around you, and you need people that you can trust that are really hearing the voice of God clearly. But at that time, you also need to hear God's voice for yourself. So I did have friends and family members that wanted us to get divorced, that were just like, he's put you through enough, he's hurt you guys enough, just, end it. But my heart was always for restoration, and that's what I would always pray, even though I wasn't sure at that time. But I wanted to hear God's voice clearly for myself, so I was always pressing in and saying, God, what are you saying? What is you going to do here? What is happening?
So moving forward, we went through, it was years, finally in 2018. I had gotten busted for dealing at one point. I was on probation, went to jail for a period of time, lots of bills, lost my driver's license, went to jail. The last time was I think it was May or somewhere in June of 2018. wasn't it 2018, right? I'm pretty sure. 2018, was in jail, ended up in jail for 30 days. I got out, and by that time we started going to Forgiven Worship Center.
You started going to Forgiven.
I started going to Forgiven Worship Center. That's during the time we were separated. Laura was still going to Petra, and I knew I was just, Richard Zimmerman reached out to me. He's like, hey, why don't you come over here? Thank you, Richard. I got connected and was still struggling. It was still a struggle. But there's a breaking point when I guess we were starting to get back together, and we were talking, but then I ended up going to jail. I got out, and everybody had this meeting and everything, and I remember at Mom Dora's, Brian Stryver and Christy and Sheila Braun came over, and they're like, you need to go to Teen Challenge. Like, let's go. And I resisted. I fighted. I'll tell you what, Sheila Braun, she can be an aggressive woman. She was in my face. And Pastor Brian, thank you. But thank you for that tough love. Like, it's necessary at times. I'm seeing it now in some relationships where guys are struggling, and it's like you guys, it's like you need to get off your ass and you need to make the choice. Like, stop screwing around. It's not worth wasting time, like, messing around with this life. Like, you don't belong to God. You don't belong to yourself. You belong to God.
Yeah.
Like, surrender. Like, quit fighting. Who cares what people think of you? Like,
right.
be concerned about what God is thinking. He loves you. He wants intimacy. He wants freedom. So I went to Teen Challenge for 30 days, and when I came out, I had surgery literally the day after I got out on my ankle, and moved back in with Laura in Goodville at that time. And
which I'm not sure if that was supposed to happen. I mean, it was just kind of, that was another thing that I was like, oh gosh, here I go being stupid again. He
took time.
He didn't have anywhere else to go, and I kind of like eventually was like, fine, whatever, stay in my car. I think he lived in the car for a couple months.
Yeah.
At night anyway.
At night, until Kayla was asleep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, and from there, things started going.
Something that I thought it wasn't like, oh, we gradually went to counseling, gradually.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I wasn't sure if I was going the right way, and that at that point. But God worked it all together for good, and after he had this surgery, I still wasn't sure, which direction we were going. God did give me the word for that year being restoration. So I did pray into that a lot. And I could see a change happening in him, but I wasn't sure. And it was more than I've ever seen in the last few years during this time, that I could see that God was doing something, but I wasn't sure if he was completely free or where he was personally.
I want to go backwards a little bit. I just thought of this, a cool testimony of how God will intervene. I think this is still an angel or something divine. You remember that time we were sitting at the shop down in Honeybrook? This still sticks in my mind. We were talking. It's during a time we were separated. She came down. I think I was actually living in the shop at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like made a room
toilet
and just had a
makeshift
bucket,
shower.
right? And she came down to talk one time, and we were sitting on the couch, and I always had it locked up. I had all my tools there. I had thousands of dollars worth of equipment and stuff, and so nobody was ever in there. And I knew who was in there if somebody was in there. So we were sitting on the couch, and I had my coffee table, like it was 100% clean. I kept the place clean for the most part. And we were sitting there talking, and I look on the coffee table, and in a little Ziploc baggie was a picture of our engagement picture, Polaroid, I think, even, wasn't it?
I don't know. It was just a picture of our hands,
mm-hmm. And a little index card that said dark past or
dark
times,
bright future.
It had like 3 different statements, but it said that, it was pretty much, it said, you've been through rough times, there's dark days ahead, but there's a bright future.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I was like, did you bring this? And she's like, no. I was like, where the heck did this come from? Like, it was sitting blatantly. I just think that is, I was like, you know what? I believe that was a divine intervention. God saying, you know what? this is your commitment. You've made it through thick and thin, through sickness and in health, you know, and don't give up. You know, this is my promise. I look at that as a prophetic word directly from the throne of God, like that paper.
Yeah.
Like that, it's powerful. So, so moving ahead, I think we're almost at 20 minutes here. We are, but restoration. We've come. Is there anything else you want to say? Like I was going to get into identity, where we're at now.
Yeah.
Restoration. We've both been pursuing God's heart.
Mm-hmm.
I've been digging in the past couple of years. I've just been saturating myself with truth of identity. That's just what I've been learning. Like God, who am I? Like, what is my name? Who do you see me as? Like, we've both been growing in that circumspectly, like you're just intensely.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that, like, is where we are finding security. We're finding the ability to communicate and walk fluidly together as a husband and wife, and even with our children. You know, we're seeing just so much growth in them recently.
Yeah.
You know, we've been taking time to pray together as a family. You know, just get into the Word, like prioritizing these things. Shut the TV off. You know, for God's sake, get off your phones. You know, we still get on our phones. We have times where we do that, but not like, I mean, at one point we're like 24 hours a day. Like, it's sad. It's disgusting. I look back now at some of the involvements and out of balance things that we were doing, that I was doing, just even months ago, and it's like, what the heck? Like, we were missing out on the abundance, and there's potential in all of us to be successful, I think, flourish spiritually, physically, in every element of life. Like, that's why we're here. We're here for the kingdom purpose. Mm-hmm. And there's things that want to quench the work of the Spirit. They want to douse out what the Holy Spirit wants to do, because we're focused over here. We're not focused, you know, where He is leading us.
I think God spoke to us both separately about identity. So what the major turning point for me was when I read Dale Mass' book and David perceived he was king. So we both have been, it's a life-changing book. It really is. So we both were Christians, you know, we've, you know, pursued God, and even through the addiction and stuff, still his identity was a son, but we didn't know our identity. We weren't walking in our identity. And so after reading that book, it just really, it brought out a boldness in me, more courage than I've had before. And I read it first, and I think you read it after me.
I did. I think I got the audio book.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing for both of us. It really helped us, like, step out of where we were and just started going in the direction that we were always created to go in, but didn't know before. And weren't walking in before. I did want to say, too, that as part of our restoration, when Josh was in Teen Challenge, God had spoke to me about having a critical spirit over him, and even before the addiction, through our marriage, because he did everything different than me, and I thought everything, the way he did it was weird, and why would you do stuff like that? And I would just say it like that, like, what are you doing? I don't understand why you do it that way. And so our whole marriage, there was this critical spirit that I didn't realize. And when he was in Teen Challenge, God really spoke that to me. And I didn't want to, you know, ask him for forgiveness for that, because I was like, you did all this to me. But God was really dealing with me with that. So I think we were on the phone one time, and I was like, you know what, Josh, can you please forgive me? I repent to you for having this critical spirit over marriage. And that was something that really turned his heart towards me again as well, because that's something that he was always dealing with that I didn't realize before in our marriage. And so even though I felt like he did all this stuff, there is still stuff that I did that was unhealthy that brought into the marriage that I had to repent for as well.
Yeah, I was thinking as you're saying that, I was just, if you want a quick way to kill a marriage, be critical of one another. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to encourage one another and even reprimand one another in love. But there's a difference between being critical and, hey, like, what you're doing here, I don't appreciate it. You know, I think this is wrong. I don't think this is honoring to God, or I feel dishonored.
Well, not
There's
even
a proper ways to go.
Dishonoring to God, but just little things. I think it was like how you dressed, you know, different things that
Oh, the comfortable. I like to dress comfortably.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
And he likes to wear bright pink shirts, and now I just let him.
Yeah, thank you. So, I think we're at 25 minutes now, so we're going to wrap it up. But and we'll probably do more. There's probably more that we're going to do in the coming weeks.
If you have questions, please reach out to us,
Yeah.
and we could address your questions in another video.
Yeah, but it's exciting where we're at now. We just bought a house in December. We're both involved in church, ministering to others, just loving on people. Sometimes I think it's easy to get. I was just talking about this past week to numerous different groups of people. It's easy to separate. Well, I'm in ministry. Well, I'm working. Well, I got my family. Well, I got to spend time with God. And I think that's a horrible, very confusing, misleading perspective of life. Everything falls under the covering of God and our intimacy with Him. And as long as I just don't put anything outside of the umbrella of God is what I'm saying. There's not family over here, there's not work over here, there's not God over here, and there's not ministry at church over here. It's all for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Don't think one is less or more important or less important than the other. Cleaning the toilet is important if your toilet's dirty. Go clean it. It's disgusting. It's honoring to God to take care of what He has blessed you with. If the dishes need washed and your wife's tired, go wash the dishes. Who cares if you're a man and you worked hard too? She's looked at as the weaker partner, so be a man and be strong and go wash the dishes. And I'm speaking to myself because there's things that I need to grow in too.